Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Telford Wrekin Council Planning Committee. This evening meeting is held in public to ensure that all those involved or interested in the planning applications can see and hear how the decisions are made. It's important that the speakers are able to present their information without interruption, and the council members of the committee are able to hear and consider the material presented. Only those people who have been notified are able to speak. We ask everyone else to remain quiet, not to interrupt the meeting, and to allow the members to make their decisions. I remind everyone that council meetings can be photographed or recorded, and I ask all participants to recognise the importance of the planning process. Please let everyone silence or turn off mobile phones. Now, before I get into the meeting proper, I've got some sad news to depart to you. You'll have heard of the untimely death of Karen Denmark, one of our senior planners. She was actually involved in one of the reports on the agenda tonight. So, because she was a long-serving member on the planning committee, the planning authority there, and we know her well, I think it only fitting to have a few moments silence to remember her. Okay. Yep. Down to the agenda proper now. Item 1, apologies for absence.
Chair, we have apologies from Councillor Janice Jones and Councillor Jim Lavery is the substitute.
Thank you. Declarations of interest, item 2.
6.1 Chair, I've been sitting on there with the Town Planning Committee and I sat on this board.
Thank you. So when that comes up, you'll leave the meeting.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Any other declarations? No. Minutes of the previous meeting. Are there true and correct record?
Move, Chair.
All those in favour? Thank you. Deferred or withdrawn applications?
There are none, Chair.
There are none. Item 5, site visits, any planned?
No planned visits as yet.
Not at the moment. Okay. Item 6, plan application for determination. We have speakers on the second one, so I'm going to do them in reverse order on the order paper. So I'm going to do 6.2 first. And that is the former Dairy Crest Limited, Crudgington. That's TWC 2022/0162. Penny, you're presenting that, are you?
I am, yes. Thank you, members. This is a full planning application for the redevelopment of the agricultural field which falls between former Dairy Crest site and the A442. The development has come forward in order to facilitate the provision of a 4-arm roundabout in place of the existing Crudgington crossroads. These highway improvements have been sought after, particularly by the local community, for many, many years, with the Crudgington crossroads being an accident hotspot. Officer's recommendation is for approval, and I'll pass back to Chair to introduce speakers.
Thank you, Penny. Councillor Steve Bentley, the ward member, please. Welcome, Steve. You've got 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll try and be as brief as I can do, Chair.
Oh, well,
First of all, could I echo your comments on Karen Denmark, an officer who I've had dealings with over the years. She'll be sadly missed by this authority. And if you could bear with me, because I'm just recovering and my bionic eye is just bedding in. So I'll try and be concise. Mr. Chairman and members, thank you for the opportunity to speak to this important and for some contentious application, which has, quite rightly, locally been subject of a healthy debate and argument at parish council meetings. That public engagement has been so important, and I'm extremely grateful that the parish council allowed me to participate, therefore publicly providing me with the opportunity to explain why, on balance, I support the officer's recommendations despite being contrary to policy but for exceptional circumstances. Over many years, the strategic junction, north-south, east-west, in our highways infrastructure has and continues to witness incidents, some minor vehicle shunts, but others which involve injury and road closure, which just last week happened with a trailer jackknife, leaving the junction temporarily closed whilst then an entire load was removed. Also, more importantly, this junction has been the site of fatalities, one of which the late District Coroner, Mr Michael Gwynn, insisted on the reconfiguration of the crossroads. Whilst that did offer some improvement, the ever-increasing volume of traffic, size of vehicles, agricultural machinery and speed has meant that more and more substantial solution was the only answer. In my mind, and that of the wider community, a roundabout is that solution. Understandably, it would have been preferred if this essential road improvement could have been installed from funding in other ways. But despite the efforts of the local MP, members, officers of Telford Wrekin Council, the PCC, this has not been possible. Phases 1 and 2 of the former Dairy Crest site have delivered through partnership working between TWC, Wrekin Housing Group, the developer and Waterstockton Parish Council, affordable homes for many. Some of which have been identified as the Parish Council and set aside for availability to those families with local connections. Members, when debating the report and considering the recommendation, which I sincerely hope will be unanimously in favour, I hope my comments will also help justify the reasons for approval. I would like to thank Val Hume and her officers from Highways, and of course Andy Sheldon from Shropshire Homes, who throughout this process have listened and supported this lengthy campaign, which began long before I became ward member by the Parish Council. There has been a demonstrated need to make this junction safer for all users, vehicle, pedestrian, cyclist, and this will be a perfect accompaniment to the pedestrian crossing now installed and operational to allow safe crossing, but also to encourage speed reduction in this locality. Members, whilst wholeheartedly supporting the officer's recommendations, I would like to close with two requests. You, whilst understanding, especially at this time of the financial pressures due to the ever-increasing costs, if adjustments to the Section 106 contributions are sought, then this improvement must not be compromised in any way. And at some point in the future, the pedestrian crossing could have a central refuge installed, especially to accommodate safety at the main crossing to Crudington Primary School. I thank you for your patience and time during this meeting, and I respectfully ask that you give your support towards the reports, the findings, and accept this recommendation for the safety of many and approve this application in full. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Bit over 3 minutes, but
Sorry?
yeah, it's a bit over 3 minutes, but I'll let you.
Oh yeah, I know, we usually do Charles, an exceptional case myself, aren't
I don't think I'm exceptional. Thank you, Steve. Mr. Andrew Sheldon, please, the applicant's agent. Follow that, Andrew.
I'll give it my best shot, what can I tell you? Okay, well, first of all, good evening everybody, and many thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. Just by way of the background, I'm a director of Shropshire Homes, and I've been involved in this scheme from when it was first considered through to this application that's being determined tonight. I do really want to thank both the council officers and the parish council for the diligent, professional and pragmatic manner in which they've dealt with this application throughout the whole process. As noted in the planning officer's report, under normal circumstances, this application would not gain the support of the council. However, as you'll be aware, planning legislation allows applications to be approved where there are exceptional circumstances. As a result of the significant public benefit that will arise from the construction of the roundabout forming part of this application, it's been agreed that this provides an exceptional circumstance, which has led to the recommendation for approval, as well as support from the Parish Council following a public consultation event for the proposal. The cost of the roundabouts is approximately £2 million, which is an amount the Council simply cannot afford and just won't be built without this enabling development. It's been a long-held desire of both the Council and the Parish Council to replace the existing crossroad arrangements, which I'm sure you're all aware is extremely dangerous, and it is this benefit which has led to the recommendation for approval. You will have seen from the officer's report that the viability of our application has been independently assessed, which confirmed that the level of contribution we're providing are appropriate because of the cost of the roundabout, and it simply won't be viable to provide affordable housing on site alongside the education contribution which is being provided in accordance with policy. This education contribution is over £450,000, which will provide additional classroom spaces, and I think it's worth noting that the local primary school have confirmed their support of the application to the parish councillors. Furthermore, we've worked really hard with your officers to achieve a really high quality design with a variety of house styles and sizes that will look extremely appealing when the development is completed. I therefore request that you support your officer's recommendation and grant permission for this application, which will bring a resolution to a long-standing, dangerous junction arrangement alongside a well-designed and attractive housing development. You'll be pleased to know I've finished well within the 3 minutes and really didn't compete with Steve. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Penny, it's back to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So just to pick up on, really follow on from both Andy and Councillor Bentley. As the report confirms, there have been no objections from statutory consultees, with the Local Highways Authority highlighting this to be a significant benefit both in the local highway and also on the wider strategic network. Waters Upton and Urkel Magna Parish Council are both supporting the application, considering it to be a significant community gain. Internally, the road design and the parking provision have undergone revisions, which are now fully in accordance with the local plan, with an over-provision of parking spaces by 5. Additionally, all properties will be installed with EV charging points, and this has been confirmed by the applicants and will be conditioned. There has been 16 objections from the local community, which have been addressed in the report, but as I say, the parish council are supporting it. Design on the site has been subject to extensive negotiations with Shropshire Homes, with specific changes being made to the A442 street scene to increase the quality and variety both of the house types and the surrounding landscape, as is on the CGI street scenes that Martha's put up for you now. Officers consider this to be a general improvement on the design quality of the earlier phases and suitable for this prominent location on the A442. The submitted viability appraisal has been independently assessed by consultant CBRE. Undoubtedly, the costs of the roundabout construction and the associated relocation of utilities within the adopted highway are significant, equating to in the region of 2 million. However, the review did consider that the scheme was still able to provide some contributions. At first, it was assumed and suggested that this would be affordable housing. However, upon reflection of the local need and the infrastructure requirements, specifically the limited capacity of the local primary school and the needs of future children living on the development, it was felt more appropriate that these funds and expenditure should focus on the education contributions. As such, the scheme will provide no affordable housing, but will contribute in full the amount of primary and secondary contributions, including transportation to secondary schools within North Telford. Furthermore, 2 additional pieces of outdoor gym equipment are to be installed on the play space from the earlier phases, as agreed with the Healthy Spaces Officer. Whilst the scheme is contrary to policy, there are significant benefits which have been sought after by the local community and the parish for many years, which are unlikely to come forward without such a development. As such, on balance, it is officers' view that this application should be supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Open to debate. Any debate? Amric.
Thanks, Chair. I think this roundabout project is long overdue. I can remember me working for the Royal Mail, driving through that road from Shrewsbury to Newport and Newport to Shrewsbury, with taking your life into your hand crossing that road. And I was wholeheartedly support this project.
Thank you, Amric. Peter Scott?
Yeah,
Then Gemma.
it's good to see ward member, parish council, borough council all in agreement on this one. It is of great benefit, and I agree with what Amric just said, that this is a long time coming in terms of the safety of the road as well. It also means that Waters Upton doesn't have to be flooded with little bits of development all over the place, because it's all pretty much in one place. I can't see any negatives, if I'm perfectly honest with it, and I would fully support it.
Thank you. Gemma?
So we have the 16 representations from neighbours. So where it says about school capacity, obviously because it is such a small school, and obviously the school have written in, how are we dealing with capacity? Obviously we don't know who's going to move into the homes per se until they're brought, rented, in whichever capacity going forward. So have we got a plan in place to look at school capacity within the area? Because if, say for example, all the homes are purchased by families that need school educational facilities, have we got any steps for that?
So the education contribution has been worked out on our standard formula with multipliers based on the housing mix that's proposed in this development, with the intention of a new class base being put on Projecton Primary School specifically. But there's also a 5% buffer on that to ensure that there is room for future growth as well. So the contributions in there cover the development, but also future growth of the community as well.
Jim Wilbridge.
I fully support the application. The only one thing I would have liked to have seen is, I know there's supply there for solar panels, but I would like to have seen some of the houses having solar panels already installed on their roofs, or a solar panel roof system installed.
Thank you, Jim. Councillor Dugmore, Nigel.
Yeah, well, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just 8.6.7 covers the increase in capacity for the school, so that's all covered. I mean, it's great that that there'll be electric charging points on all the cars, because it's a bit of a schlep to going to charge your car from Waters up to, unless you've got one at home.
You've got large extension leads.
You have, yeah. Big flex, yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, the thing is that, I mean, the whole development looks okay, and certainly getting the roundabout done, it's been long needed, and this should be fully supported because it's desperately required.
Councillor Fletcher, Ian.
Yeah, well, unlike my colleagues, I'm not happy about this. The responsibility for providing highways is the local authority, and what they're doing is they're using the exception rule to get somebody else, i.e. the developer, to pay for work that they should be doing, because this land is agricultural land. It's a development that isn't allowed within our policy for housing, because it isn't one of the 5 designated areas that housing can be given in the rural area. What they're saying is, oh, we don't have to pay, the developers will pay, so we'll agree it. So I'm not happy, Chairman, and I think it's disrespectful for those people who have applied for housing in other areas in the rural area and have been turned down on policy grounds, that in this case the council says it's going to save us 2 million, we'll allow it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Ian. Anybody else? Penny, do you want to come back?
I don't think there's anything else I need to pick up on. Ian?
Penny, can you confirm that what the point on as you about the emergency exit or access?
Yes. So yes, sorry, I don't know if I mentioned that. It was just there's emergency access off the A442 just north of the roundabout, and it's just to say that we're going to condition the control and system of that to ensure that it does retain as emergency access, and that's been agreed with the applicants as well, subsequent to the report being written.
Okay. Been moved and seconded. All those in favour of the application, please show. Those against? 1 against. Okay, that's allowed then. Thank you, Graham. We now move to TWC 2021-0473 at the site of the former Haygate pub, 26 Haygate Road. Penny, that's you again.
Chair, as there's no speakers, are you happy for me to just go through my full introduction? And
yes.
Thank you. This is a full.
There's no speakers.
Brilliant.
Are you all right?
This is a full application for the redevelopment of the former Haygate pub, Haygate Road, of an 18-number apartment block consisting of 1 and 2 bedroom units. This is a brownfield site supported by a viability assessment. The site is located in the heart of Wellington, within easy walking distance to a vast array of local facilities and transport links. It benefits from local convenience stores, various supermarkets, Wellington Market and the town centre itself. Additionally, the bus and train stations are located 0.4 miles from the site to provide transport further afield. The site provides 20 number car parking spaces, which is an under-provision of the local plan parking standards. However, given the site constraints and its sustainable location, the under-provision of 5 spaces is considered acceptable. Additionally, the development also seeks to provide indoor storage for 36 bicycles, and each parking space will have EV charging capabilities. As such, there are no objections from statutory consultees, including highways. Wellington Town Council have objected on the basis of overdevelopment, the design not being in keeping, local traffic issues and inadequate parking provision. This is a 3-storey building, but the upper storey will be recessed and flat roofed to minimise overbearance. A modern design is finished predominantly in brick, with render detailing to emphasise the entrance to the parking undercroft entrance. The upper floor will be clad in a dark material. This design has evolved following extensive negotiations on design from the onset with the case officer. The local area is varied in style with no set design pattern. The design picks up on design features in a modern approach such as the render banding seen on other properties in the local vicinity, and the existing boundary wall will be retained. All but one of the properties meet the National Design Space standards. There are a number of TPOs outside the site to the west which are unaffected and will be protected during construction. It is actually considered that the removal of the existing hard standing around these trees would be beneficial for their long-term survival. Beyond this, there is only the loss of 2 immature ash trees of low quality within the site. The viability appraisal has again been assessed and the scheme found to be unviable should affordable housing be sought at the current rate. The applicants, however, will provide contributions towards education, recreation and sports facilities as is set out in the report. On balance, this is considered to be a viable development in a highly sustainable location which will seek the redevelopment of a derelict brownfield site. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Penny. It's open for debate. Peter.
A couple of quick questions. Is there any mileage in looking at a few more parking spaces, because it is a low figure? I understand what they're saying about sustainability and cycling, you know, and they are obviously in a position where if you live there it's going to be good for the centre of Wellington, that's true enough. But is that their final word basically on that? And also bin storage,
Yeah.
what is the facility there?
Okay. You have to bear with me because this wasn't my original application.
Okay,
So, in terms of the parking spaces, what I do know is that originally there was an under-provision of 7 parking spaces, and the local highways authority came back and said if they were able to bring it up by an additional 2, because there was additional landscaped areas, then they would remove their objection on the basis of it being a sustainable location.
If I can interject in terms of the
Please do.
bins, bin storage. So on the floor plan submitted, the ground floor is kind of dissected by the creating the access, and on one side you've got residential, and on the right hand side, adjacent to the cycle storage, you've got a separate bin store which includes capacity for 8 of the kind of large capacity industrial bins. So that's included within the building with access into the rear to the courtyard.
That was like a complex rather than...
Yeah, they're
Individual-
aren't
yeah.
identified
Get
as
it.
individuals. They would be serving the entire complex. Indeed.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, I get it. Thank you.
Okay, Peter.
Yeah, just to confirm that then, that's as many parking spaces as we're likely to have.
Yes.
Okay, and just as a comment really, I think the pub itself is gone. There's no getting away from that, you know, anyway. It was never going to come back. I understand that people want things to stay the same, but I actually think this, from what we can see, will be an improvement to the frontage of that area. So, generally speaking, I can't see many reasons to say no.
Gemma.
Can I just, what's it? I've got a big thing about trees at the moment. So, what we tend to do is we tend to end up removing trees and then not putting back what we've removed back into the environment that we live. So how are we going to measure, and I say yes, we've got enforcement, but how are we going to ensure that they're going to put the trees back that have been taken away within the grounds?
Okay. So, as I mentioned, the TPO trees that are shown on the site plan, those 4 large trees they're outside of the development boundary, so they will be untouched. There's a tree protection plan and method statement that support the application, so they'll be protected during construction. Internally within the site, it's predominantly hard standing, but there is 2 very immature ash trees that are going to be removed. which are of little to no value really. But as proposed on the site plan, there is a wealth of landscaping over and above what we would have had with the 2 immature ash trees, and we've got the landscaping condition there to ensure that we do get more than is currently on the site, really, a lot more.
Okay, Jim?
I'm not going to go along with it. The only thing, as I say, the same as Peter, I'm not happy for the amount of car parking space. It's all right saying they can walk. There's going to be 18 flats. They're going to have visitors. Where's the visitors going to park? You know, and there's the kick-off about parking in the street, which has already been put forward by Highway, so I feel we need more parking space there.
As I say, all I can really point to is the NPPF and there having to be a severe and significant impact on the highways for us to warrant refusal of it, and in this particular case the local highways authority don't believe that's the case, and whilst there is an under-provision, given its sustainable location, it's not inadequate enough for us to warrant refusal on those grounds.
Over Jim?
It's much the same point, but if you've got 18 flats and some of them are 2-bedroom flats, you could have more than 1 resident per flat and more than 1 car per flat, plus the visitors, plus it's next door to, I think, is it Tesco's? And double yellow lines are on the main road, and there already is a parking problem in that area as it stands, and provisions for visitors would be almost impossible really. There is nowhere to go, because I think there's a laundry shop there that struggles to get people to get into the shop itself, so it's already a parking problem. So I do think we need to look at that again. It really is wrong. And the other thing I was going to ask is on page 15, one of the neighbour representation points, the public house demolished without planning permission and should be rebuilt. Is that a fallacy or a fact?
It was demolished without planning permission, but they did receive retrospective planning permission for that back in 2020. So it has all been regularised through a planning application.
Mark, do you want to come in?
Yep, just to kind of go through a bit more context in terms of the parking. So there's 20 spaces provided for the 18 units. Okay, they're a mix of 1 and 2 bed properties. What we cannot ignore here is the sustainable location. So the overall development has a shortfall of 5 spaces. But that would be 5 spaces whether it was within the kind of town centre, well, closer to Wellington or further away. Here we do have the benefit. It is within a couple of minutes distance of walking into Wellington. It is Wellington is one of the most sustainable areas of the borough. We have the bus station, we have the train station, and we have plenty of local amenities. Furthermore, we also have a number of car parks within Wellington town centre. A number of those are free and long term, and they again are within just a couple of minutes walking distance of the sites. Therefore, to kind of address the parking issue in terms of visitors or secondary occupants of any units within there would be the opportunity for reasonable parking. If we were to kind of assess a different kind of location within the country, walk in 2 minutes, if you kind of lived in a terrace property and your car parked on the street, it could in theory be parked several streets away. Here you have a comparable relationship, so I wouldn't state that the parking is a reasonable grounds for refusal on this.
You want to come back, Jim?
Yeah, you mentioned long stay free car parks within Wellington, but I'm trying to think out now where the nearest one is to it, and it's not that near.
So you've got the car park to the opposite side of the leisure centre. So on the side of the leisure centre,
the leisure centre is
the leisure
it's
centre
more
is
than
limited.
2 minutes walk from there, it might be too, it might not feel very far in a car, but more than 2 minutes.
Councillor Dugmore.
Yeah, well, you know, well, you know, I'm going to talk about parking because I normally do. I mean, you know, it's 20% less than it should be, even with the, and there's no. I mean, it would help the residents who haven't got parking spaces if there was some pick up or drop off or something, because, you know, if you haven't got a parking space, you are going to have to walk about half a mile to the nearest long stay one. And regardless, and that's not going to be very convenient, particularly if you've got loads of shopping or what have you. I do think that really the location, how it's been located on the site, is quite poor. Really, I mean, it does say that there's a large area of communal space. So if there's a large area of communal space, why isn't that given over to the parking, so that it's actually gives a parking space to each resident? I mean, there's no affordable housing on here at all, so it's all going to be privately bought. So they're more less likely to be using public transport. So I think we're just creating a problem here, because there's no on-street parking, and the other thing is that because the entrance is through this little tunnel thing in the middle of the building, how tall is that? Because can you get a fire engine through? You know, can you get a bin wagon through? Because you're not going to be able to put the bins out onto Haygate Road. The other thing is, it's not clear in the report, is the levels as well. I mean, I see it's flat roof design so that it's not imposing on the neighbouring properties. So what is the levels, the difference in height? Because even with a flat roof, if the ground levels are quite significant, well, then it will be imposing on there. So I think there's still quite a lot of questions on this one, and I'm surprised it's come to us to consider, when, you know, with a bit more thought, we could have addressed a lot of the problems with it.
I'll try and answer a few of those for you, Nigel. In terms of the site layout, whilst there is obviously amenity space around the unit, a lot of that is taken up by the root protection areas of the TPO trees. So there's not a lot that can be done with the layout to improve it in terms of sort of the car parking standards, because of having to retain that amenity land to protect the trees as well. In terms of access for fire and bins, the bins would have to be brought out to the adopted highway, as is the case for a lot of sort of private courtyards, so they'd have to be brought out on bin day. And
they're commercial bins, they're not little bins. How are you going to get residents pulling commercial bins? I'll tell you something, they're bloody heavy when they're full.
I think in terms of the arrangement you typically have with the commercial bins is quite, wouldn't necessarily be the local authority that collected those, it would probably be the private contractor, so presumably maybe through the service charge or some arrangement through that. So it's quite a different arrangement. You're not expected to bring your bins out. They would go have access to that area, collect the bins and take them out themselves, and then return the bins as well.
Question, will they be able to get access? Because they'll have to go under the tunnel, won't they?
But it would be the workers that would have access rather than the vehicle.
You'll have bin wagon parked on Haygate Road, collecting bins.
Which isn't an uncommon.
yeah, it would be the same for all properties along Haygate Road currently, with the
It is near the junction.
Well, yeah, but the ordinary bin wagons, though, you pull your bins out onto the
They're no
bins,
different
which don't-
size. These
So
commercial ones, they're no different size.
So basically, you'd have the bin wagon parked there while the men got out and went into the site and pulled out the commercial bins. So it's going to be a much bigger. The time that's going to take is going to be a lot greater than an ordinary bin wagon.
Yeah, appreciated, but I think we also have to consider that it is only going to be a 10-minute period over the course of a week. It's not going to be a significant impact on sort of the local network.
We have this issue at Brookside, and it wouldn't be any longer for them or any more inconvenient than the street bin that comes up and moves house to house as they collect. It's in one place instead of going a few
Depends how
yards
busy
up
the
each
street
time.
is, though, doesn't it? Because Haygate Road's quite a busy road.
Traffic management, isn't it?
Anybody else want to make a comment? Ian?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. There's a couple of things. I know that the viability assessment has been assessed, and we had a very nice presentation about viability assessment, but I presume that when they do the viability assessment, they use the figures supplied by the developer for doing the calculations. They don't independently verify those figures themselves. That's the first question.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree that it breaches the parking plan, but the planners are quite happy to have it. But I'm very concerned about the design of this block of flats. Looking carefully at the design, it would seem that the access to the flats is off the central tunnel. So people accessing or egressing from these set of flats are going to be walking out into the traffic going in and out to the car parking spaces, which I think is a bad design fault for starters. The other thing is, looking at it, the plans, and looking at all the comments about it, it's quite clear that this design does not complement the existing properties on Haygate Road. And so to my mind, it should be rejected. In fact, it doesn't meet the design criteria of the normal street scene that we would have. So I'm a bit unhappy, and I'd like the officer's response on those matters. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks, Ian. So in terms of the viability, the developers do provide their own figures based on comparables that they've created, their build rates, their intended profits, but then when we get it independently assessed, it's scrutinised, and CBRE, who we've used as an independent consultant, will base that upon the rates that they currently use in their assessments, and they will scrutinise it if they feel it's incorrect, or the profit margins aren't right, or the build rates are higher than, they're doing build rates that are higher than actually is the average. They'll knock that down, they'll review it, and it's on that basis that they still consider it to be unviable. There are slightly different factors within the report, so they've got a slightly different profit rate than the developers have put within theirs, but it's still considered not viable if they provide the affordable housing.
I just want that clarification.
Yeah, that's fine. And then just in terms of design, I think design is always subjective. I think that the issue with this site is that there isn't any set street scene or any set design. You've got a lot of Victorian properties, you've got a lot of 1960s council houses around there, you've got the new properties to the west and to the north that have recently been constructed, you've got the telephone exchange to the rear as well, you've got the Sir John Bailey social club over the road, and there's quite a big variety in that immediate vicinity. And what this looks to do is try and provide an enhancement to that area on the street scene. It does pick up a few key design features that are seen in some of the more historical properties, but in a modern approach, and that's the view that the officers have taken in terms of supporting it.
It's a modern office block.
That's what you want to call it, yes.
Well, yeah, it looks to me like a modern office block, and doesn't go in fit in properly. Thank you.
Anybody else? It's been moved by Peter. Is it second, is there? Seconded by Gemma. All those in favour of the application, please show. 2, 3, 4. Those against? It's passed. 4 votes to 3. Right, okay. It's still 4-3. 1 abstention.
Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, oh, yeah. One,
Oh,
two,
yeah,
three,
sorry,
four.
yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. And I would declare if my casting vote, I'd cast it
Yep.
in fair play anyway, because we need the 1 or 2 bedroom flats.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending. The next meeting is the Bank Holiday week of August.